I love the Zweihander, and my favorite incarnation of this weapon is in Dark Souls 1. So today I want you to join me not only for a new video, but an entirely new series, where I use weapons named the Zweihander in all different games, and rank them in relation to each other. From Code Vein to Dark Souls 2 to Killing Floor 2 to Black Ops 4, I want to find what the best Zweihander is. And for our quest, there is no better place to start than Dark Souls 1. To show you how good the Zweihander is in this game, I'll show you how to get the weapon, the initial setup, build crafting around it, and how I generally played through the game with it. Once this series really gets going, this will be the Zweihander to beat. If you want to most effectively use the Zweihander, your starting class will matter. Choose the Bandit, and pick the Master Key as your gift. You'll be playing the prologue as normal, defeating the Asylum Demon, but once we get ourselves into Lordran, we can see the significance of both of our starting choices. Before we do anything else, right after we touch down, we are good to grab the Zweihander. In the graveyard before the catacombs, by a large headstone, the weapon is sitting on the ground. It is protected by a few skeletons, so be sure to roll out of the way of their attacks, and head back to Firelink. At the bonfire, put 2 points into strength and 1 into dexterity. This will get us to 16 and 10. 10 dexterity is a requirement to use the weapon, and 24 is the requirement to wield it one-handed, but since we will be two-handing it the whole playthrough, we only need 16. And these are the strength and dexterity stats I ended the game with. From here on out, I only leveled up vitality and endurance. We do not need to one-hand this weapon. A wise man once said, "Wir nennen es Zweihänder, nicht Einhänder." That wise man was me. As a spoiler for later, we're doing a lightning enchantment on the Zweihander, much like I did for my very first playthrough, and lightning in this game will give you a flat damage without considering your stat scaling. This lets us splurge on health and endurance, while still maintaining decent damage, save for a couple difficult bosses in the game, namely Ornstein and Gwyn. That aside, let's get back to opening moves. First thing you want to do is go down to New Londo. There is a Firekeeper soul that you can easily access. Just make sure you pick up the Homeward Bones in the chest right outside of Firelink before you do this, as you can run past the ghosts, pick up the soul, and Homeward Bone out. With an upgraded flask, going through Undead Burg would be much easier, but we're not going to do that. We have the Master Key, so go back down to New Londo and cut through the Valley of the Drakes all the way to Darkroot. Here, around a Black Knight, you'll find the Grass Crest Shield, which, when we have the appropriate endurance to use it, I will have on my back all the time, as even having it on your offhand gives you boosted stamina regeneration. Now, make your way up through Darkroot and all the way up into Andre's Tower. This gives us access to the far side of Undead Burg, where we can upgrade our weapon and activate the elevator shortcut, bringing us all the way back to Firelink Shrine. This is my first run of the game in a little while, and it still impresses me how interconnected everything is in Dark Souls 1. Maybe it's because I don't really have that many hours in the game in total, but I am still in love with it. At the altar by the top of the elevators, there's an enemy that we can defeat who drops a Titanite shard and another Firekeeper soul. So before we even fight one boss, we have an upgraded weapon and a +2 flask. Speaking of upgrades, with all the souls I collected and found on the ground, I was able to get the Zweihander up to +3. Andre sells Titanite shards, so be sure to purchase more with your extra funds. Now, I haven't talked about the moveset yet. The light attacks are those huge sweeping arcs that you know and love from Elden Ring, but the R2 is different. It is this overhead slamming attack, and it is perfect for clearing out trash mobs. All those hollows that the summoner sends after you before the Bell Gargoyles fight are flattened in a single hit by that hefty R2 attack. Just keep your distance from them, and when you know they're going to be in range, slam it down and you'll take out more than one every single hit. The summoner is of no issue with this weapon as well, and before the fight, we can free Lartrek. He will come in handy very soon. Now climb the ladder and start the Bell Gargoyles fight, which will be incredibly easy. You only need a few hits to take out the full health enemy and the gargoyle that spawns on half health. 3 hits should be enough to take him out. At this point, you started the game, a half hour ago? And we already have rung one of the Bells of Awakening. And we are swimming in souls. We can buy more shards from Andre and upgrade our weapon to +5, and put the rest into health and endurance. But before I left the rooftops, I just had to take a second and admire how great this game looks. Even on the remaster and 15 years after initial release, the art direction that inspired From Software really shines through here. One could call it grossly incandescent. With our +5 weapon, we could head backwards through Undead Burg and even take a nice peaceful stroll on the bridge, as the Hellkite Drake is not yet activated. All my Claymore fans watching will appreciate how you can pick this weapon up without getting burnt to a crisp. Go out and meet Solaire if you like, but our main purpose here is to get to Lower Undead Burg. What I did was clear out the whole area and then loop past the Capra Demon fight and open up the Firelink shortcut, so I could have a full stock of 10 Estus before I started that battle. While taking the shortcut, I did purchase some purple moss from the female undead merchant. It will come in handy in Blighttown soon. So long as you're not destroyed by the dogs at the very start of the fight, Capra Demon is not too difficult. We deal over 200 damage per hit, and he has only a few moves. Now we have the key to the depths, and we're only going in here for the large ember. Find it right behind the butcher, and now Andre can level us up all the way to +10. We have the master key and access to Valley of the Drakes. We do not need to go through here to get to Blighttown. In my case, I visited Andre once more and got all the way up to +7 before visiting Quelaag. However, something I did forget to record is dealing with Lartrek. He'll be right by the Firekeeper and Firelink Shrine, so what you do, stand next to him, press R1 and forward twice to kick him, he'll fall off the map, quit out, reopen the game, and you'll see that ring of favor and protection on the ground for you to use the rest of the game. Being back in Blighttown feels strange after not visiting for several years. The entrance through Valley of the Drakes is much easier, but overall, it's still terrible being there. Run through that good old poison swamp, right to Quelaag's domain, and initiate her boss fight. If you know when to back up for her huge AoEs, this fight is also none too difficult. She only has a couple varieties of sword swing, and most other attacks are going to be lava spews up front. Stick to her side, keep using those heavy and light attacks for the Zweihander, and you'll defeat her and have your second Bell of Awakening run. But we're not quite done here. By the fair lady, I leveled up enough endurance to use the Grass Crest shield on my back at all times and still maintain a good roll. Also, I fought Ceaseless. Because of the nature of our build, we have enough health to tank his attacks. Once you grab that armor from his sister, you can rage bait him all the way to the end of the arena, where he takes a leap and you can knock him down for an instant kill. There is an additional 20,000 souls for our troubles. A couple things to note in Blighttown as we go up. There is some large Titanite in the swamp we can grab, and another Firekeeper soul. It is surrounded by fire-breathing dogs and blow dart users, so I kinda sacked 2,000 souls so I could grab this. That amount of funds is worth a +3 flask. Now, Frampt is awake, and Sen's Fortress is open to us. This area is made all the easier by our Zweihander R2 attacks, as every heavy you land will flatten a man-serpent instantly. As long as you're fighting only one, you can stunlock each of them, and they won't be able to touch you. After the funhouse and on the roof, be sure to grab that bonfire that's somewhat hidden, and make your way to the far end of the roof, where we can find a rare ring of sacrifice. This, instead of skipping through the archives, is what I use for the Seath fight. I took out the giant so he wouldn't bother me during the fight, and Iron Golem is the last obstacle before we get to Anor Londo. We have great damage, so make sure he's on a narrow part of the walkway, wait for him to stagger, and with your R1s, you can send him over the edge. Now this has nothing to do with the game, but in Anor Londo, with the giant blacksmith, we can get the lightning upgrade. Right after I fought the Iron Golem, there was a crazy thunderstorm that rolled through my town, and I was able to catch lightning on camera. If that isn't a sign that I had to do this infusion, I don't know what is. We can flatten the guardians on the rafters, even though I don't have this recorded for some reason. I just have footage of me getting bullied by the last guy. Another tip for here is to simply block if they're throwing projectiles at you. Now that we've completed the path to the start, the second difficult part of Anor Londo, with the twin Silver Knight archers, is ahead of us. This did get me one time, but the strat here is also really simple. Kindle that bonfire by Solaire, and I'm sure all of you know this, but on that spiral staircase right outside the bonfire, we can jump the railing to skip much of the level. Now that we have access to the giant blacksmith, we can ascend our Zweihander up to lightning, and upgrade it a bit more, as there is a Titanite chunk right outside his room. One word of caution though, Ornstein has very high lightning resistance, as I mentioned earlier in the video. It may be wise to hold off on the infusion. I decided to go for it because I love the way it sounds, but that's your call. Ornstein and Smo, they are much harder than anything we've faced yet, but compared to the fast-paced fights of Elden Ring, they are rather manageable. Take your time, wait for good openings, and your Zwei will slowly tick down Ornstein's health. And with the lightning infusion, I do recommend taking out Ornstein first and facing Super Smo for phase 2. He stuns easier than you think with the Zweihander R2s, and with his slower, well-telegraphed attacks, he is much easier to dodge. Now we have the Lord Vessel, and the game is halfway over. We've unlocked warping, and that opens everything up for us. You can decide which of the Lord Souls to obtain first. Personally, I went for Seath to get him out of the way. If you don't do the archive skip, use that rare ring of sacrifice, so you don't have to lose your souls and can even maintain humanity when you get locked up. Turns out, those goofy looking abominations that are unleashed by the Man Serpent die to a single Zweihander R2 attack. There's nothing much more to say for the archives, otherwise this is a standard run. Except when you get to Seath, you have a very nice weapon to use against him, as you are dealing lightning damage. We have tons of health and endurance now, so we have decent armor and enough health to weather the storm of a Crystal Breath attack. With Seath taken care of, I went back to the Demon Ruins to take out Demon Fire Sage, who was best handled by circling around him, and the Centipede Demon, who I believe I beat. I didn't really see what was happening as the boss was taking up the entirety of the camera for most of the fight. Yet I did obtain that orange charred ring and ran through Lost Izalith, unlocking that hidden bonfire, and challenging Bed of Chaos. This boss is as bad as I remember it being. One thing you can do, that I'm sure all of you know also, is to quit out once you defeat one of the bugs. This will save your boss fight progress and reset you outside the fog wall. After falling to your death, you can now claim your second Lord Soul. New Londo's up next, and we have plenty of souls saved up, so we can buy that crest and head to Sif. Another huge Zweihander advantage here is that NPCs cannot deal with the R1 attacks. You should have enough endurance to chain 2 or 3 light attacks together. This will stun lock the NPC enemies, and they will be no problem on your way to the boss fight. I handled the dog by actually locking on, which I don't do too much in this game, and taking her out with light attacks or roll attacks in this case. The poor dog couldn't handle me getting inside her sword swings and poking with that Zweihander. You can either buy transient curses, or as I forgot to mention earlier, in that pot right when you get into New Londo, there are 2 transient curses on the corpse. Pop one of those before you fight the ghosts and head through the ruins. The hardest part of this level is that ghost house right at the end, so I recommend camping up in that main room and waiting for all the enemies to come to you. Once we drain the lower levels, we can fight all the Dark Wraith enemies down below, and they are also no match for that overhead Zweihander swing. One thing I do have to say, I didn't quite remember how to navigate Lower New Londo to get to the Four Kings, so I had a wonderful time exploring this place. Once again, Dark Souls level design still holds up all these years later. Make sure you have the Covenant of Artorias equipped, and take the plunge down to the Four Kings. With an aggressive playstyle, we may not have scaling, but we have enough damage to take out the kings before the other ones spawn and gank the crap out of us. That's 3 out of 4 down. You will find some chunks in Lower New Londo, and you can upgrade your weapon more here. One thing I highly recommend that you do is go back to Lost Izalith, put Solaire out of his misery and get the Sunlight Maggot. We need 2 hands to use the Zweihander, so the Skull Lantern is not in the cards for us. And the light source provided by the Maggot makes navigating the Tomb of the Giants so much easier. To get there, we need only defeat Pinwheel. Keep smashing away with those heavy R2s, and with the power of sunlight and lightning, cleave your way all the way down to Nido. We may not be dealing holy damage against him, but lightning is fine enough, so long as we stick near the boss fight entrance and don't activate those huge skeletons in the back of the arena. The smaller trash mobs are none too bad, and that's the final Lord Soul. Unfortunately, I do have to inform you, as I said earlier, this build is not great for Gwyn. You can change it around by upping your strength by 8 more to get up to 24, and infusing your weapon with fire instead to be more effective against him. But to stay true with my build throughout the playthrough, I decided to fight Gwyn without parry strats for the first time. It was a lot uglier than I thought it would have been, but I got it done in the end. And ladies and gentlemen, that is my first completion of Dark Souls in a long time, with my favorite incarnation of the Zweihander nonetheless. Now that we've completed the first playthrough in the series, I want to introduce you to the ranking system. I'll call it Zweihanderheit, or the Zweihander-ness of the game. I want to rank how easy it is to get the Zweihander, how good the weapon is, how it looks, and how good it is compared to other weapons in the game. In our first category, we can grab it right outside the prologue. There is no beating Dark Souls 1 in this stat. Next, how good it is. The Zweihander is so good in this game that I knew about the Giant Dad meme even before I played Dark Souls 1. So it has a reputation that supersedes the game itself on how good it is. I gotta say, this is a fine looking weapon as well, so high marks in that arena too. Its superb effectiveness against trash mobs and bosses alike means it is also way up there in comparison to other Dark Souls 1 weapons. So it may only be episode 1 in the series, but the Dark Souls 1 Zweihander is the Zwei to beat. I hope you all enjoyed this longer than usual video and this first episode in this series. Do stay tuned for all subsequent installments and new Souls-like videos without fail every single Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Be sure to like and subscribe to TheJerseySide. Comment down below if you've used the Zwei in DS1 as well, and how you would rank it against its counterparts in other games. For the next episode in the series, I think I'm gonna review another game where the Zweihander shines. That would be Code Vein 1. I can't promise that'll be next week or even the week after that, as I have many career and family obligations coming up. Do give me some time on that, fellas. But it will be ready for you all in short order, and we'll see if it can surmount the DS1 Zweihander in the next episode of Try the Zwei.